The fifth stage. Now, as Christian went on his way, he came to a slight incline designed to allow pilgrims to see more easily ahead. From up there, Christian went along, and looking up, he saw Faithful in the distance, intent on his journey. Christian cried out loudly to get his attention. "Here, here! Look here! Wait, and let me catch up to you, and I will be your companion." At that, Faithful looked behind him. Christian cried out again, "Wait, wait, until I catch up to you." But Faithful answered, "No, I travel with my life at stake, and the avenger of blood is close behind me." This reply somewhat moved Christian. He mustered all his strength and quickly caught up with Faithful. In fact, he accidentally ran past him, so that the last became the first. A smile brightened Christian's face with a sense of self-congratulation. He felt proud because he had gotten ahead of his brother, but he didn't pay attention to his feet. Suddenly, he stumbled, fell to the ground, and he couldn't get up. That is, until Faithful came up to help him. Then I saw in my dream that the two of them went along together very lovingly toward one another, and enjoyed a delightful conversation about all the things that had happened to them in their pilgrimage. Christian began in this way: "My honored and deeply loved brother, Faithful, I am glad I have caught up with you, and that God has so strengthened our spirits that we can walk as companions in this so pleasant a path." Faithful looked over at Christian as they walked. "Dear friend, I had thought of enjoying your company, even from our town, but you did get quite a start ahead of me. Because of that, I was forced to come this far on my own. How long did you stay in the city of destruction before you set out after me on your pilgrimage?" "Till I could stay no longer," Faithful admitted. "After you left, there was a lot of talk about how our city would be burned to the ground with fire from heaven in a short time. Is that right?" "Did your neighbors really talk like this?" Faithful nodded. "Yes. For a while, it's what everybody talked about, at least for a while." A slight frown creased Christian's brow. "Did no one else but you come away from destruction to escape the danger?" Faithful shrugged with his hand, palm up, and let it fall to his side in resignation. "Like I said, there was a lot of talk going on, but I don't think that they really believed it. In the heat of the conversation, I heard some of them ridicule you. They even talked about your pilgrimage like they disapproved of it. In fact, they described it as a desperate journey. However, I believed, and still do, that the end of our city will be with fire and brimstone from above, and as a result, I decided to make my escape." "Did you hear anyone talk about neighbor Pliable?" "Yes, Christian. I heard that he followed you until he came to the Slough of Despond, where some said he fell in. He wouldn't say anything about it, but I'm sure he was thoroughly covered with the foul dirt of that place." "And what did the neighbors say to him?" "Since he returned, he has been the subject of considerable derision from all sorts of people. Some mock and despise him, and hardly anyone will give him work. He is 7 times worse off now than if he had never left the city in the first place." The news troubled Christian. But why were they so set against him, especially since they also despised the way he abandoned? Faithful's lips thinned to a straight line. They say things like, hang him, he's a turncoat, he wasn't true to his profession. I think God has stirred them up to hiss and jeer at him, and make a proverb of him, because he hath forsaken the way. I will pursue them with the sword, with famine, and with pestilence, and I will make them a terror to all the kingdoms of the earth, to be a curse, and a horror, and a hissing, and a reproach among all the nations where I have driven them, because they have not listened to my words, declares the Lord, which I sent them again and again by my servants the prophets. But you did not listen, declares the Lord. Jeremiah chapter 29, verses 18 and 19. Did you have a chance to talk with him before you left? I saw him once in the streets, Faithful said, but he stayed to the other side of the street, like he was ashamed of what he had done, so I didn't really speak to him. Christian glanced down to the ground. I have to say, when I first set out, I had hopes for him. He looked back at Faithful with sadness in his eyes. But now I'm afraid he will perish in the overthrow of the city. For it has happened to him, just as the proverb says. A dog returns to its own vomit, and a sow, after washing, returns to wallowing in the mire. 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 22. Faithful nodded. I agree. I have the same fears for him. But who can hinder that which will be? Well, neighbor Faithful, Christian said, let's talk about something else, about things that concern us more immediately. Tell me now, what have you met with and experienced thus far along the way? Because I know you have undergone some things that would be worth recording. Faithful didn't hesitate to answer. I escaped the slough of despond, which I understand you fell into, and I reached the gate without suffering that danger. However, I met with a woman whose name was Wanton, who intended to do me harm. Christian said, it's a good thing you escaped her snare. Joseph was tested by her in Egypt, and he escaped her as you did. Otherwise, it would have cost him his life. Now, it happened one day that Joseph went into the house to do his work, and none of the men of the household was there inside. She caught him by his garment, saying, lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand, and fled, and went outside. When she saw that he had left his garment in her hand, and had fled outside. Genesis chapter 39, verses 11 to 13. But what did she do to you? Unless you experience talking with her yourself, you can't begin to imagine how flattering her words were, Faithful said. So she didn't promise you the things of a moral excellence? Faithful shook his head. No, not at all. She promised things of a carnal and fleshly nature, promising all sorts of sensual pleasure. Phew! Christian let out a low whistle. Thank God you escaped her, because those despised by the Lord shall fall into her pit. The mouth of an adulteress is a deep pit. He who is cursed of the Lord will fall into it. Proverbs chapter 22, verse 14.